again, and thank you so much for coming and honoring our invite to honor Jackie as she launched a book here today. My name is Tanya Makubele. I work for the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment at the Wits Business School. I'm a programs manager leading the program called Adoye for women in African philanthropy. So Jackie is also on our steering committee, and we are honored for her to include us in the work that she's doing on philanthropy and women, and making sure that our efforts are seen even in Uganda and elsewhere in Africa. As we start here, I've already said welcome. We have some refreshments. If you want to quickly grab as they come to stage, you can grab some water, and then we can settle down. And we welcome Jackie to join us here. On stage, you can come through. And our esteemed Bongi will be taking us through the interview for the day. Thank you, everyone, and over to you, Bongi.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is my mic working, or I still need to use the mic? Okay, great.
It won't feedback, eh?
Okay.
One, two.
Great.
3, 4.
Good
Five,
evening,
six.
everyone. And can you hear me? I have to bring it closer. 1, 2. Is that okay? Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's such a great honor to be here and to facilitate a conversation that I'm hoping you will all participate in. My name is Bongiwe Mlangeni. You're welcome to call me Bongi. I am somehow associated with CAPSI. I lecture at the Wits Business School under CAPSI. And I am also part of the advisory board at CAPSI. It's a great honor to meet my sister here, Jacqueline. We've met only once before at an event where philanthropy was being discussed. And it is wonderful to be with you in this way this time around, where you have launched a book. And when I received this book last week, I could not put it down. I've been reading it ever since I got it on Thursday, going through every page and just realizing, similarities in terms of our journeys. And I am sure that there is a lot to share. This book, it's first, let's just congratulate Jackie in achieving, this big step. And she was telling me that the cover was designed by her sister. And I was telling her that the cover is magnificently well done. And it shows that her journey is definitely far from finished. She is looking forward to greater things, in the future. It's all here. You can see it in this cover. So well done to your sister as well.
Thank
yes,
you.
yeah, for doing such a great job. This book appears as if it's about mountains when you look at the topic, but it's actually about your leadership journey. And not just your leadership journey, because it's a journey I think many women, and in particular some of the challenges you have experienced, are experienced by African women leaders. It is also a book that reveals your generous spirit, and it tells us about your values. It tells us about not just where you come from, but what is the foundation of this work that you are doing today. There are so many links to where you come from and who you have become in life. So I want to start by asking, what inspired you to write a book, a memoir, at this time in your life?
Thank you, first of all, for having me this evening, and thank you all for coming out to listen to this conversation. and to have a conversation with me after Bongi is done grilling me. What inspired? So part of it is, it's three things. One, my mother at the official launch in Uganda about 2 months ago said that from when I was a young child, I would always go around with pieces of paper and I was always writing down things. She never knew what, but she said I was always writing things. And so maybe that is the seed of that. Like, yeah, just the desire, the passion to write. And to this day, I journal. It's one of the things that enables me to process what I'm going through, but also to remember what I'm going through. So that is one. Two, so fast forward to 2015 when we started climbing mountains. Apparently I wrote in my journals, again, which we unearthed for the launch. I started writing then that I would write a book. At that time, I thought it would be about the lessons from climbing the mountain or mountains, and I actually started a blog, but quickly talked myself out of it, like we all do when we are suffering imposter syndrome and just afraid of our own voice. So I stopped that, but I had started to write about the lessons that I'd learned on the mountain, and then I closed that chapter. And then maybe 1 or 2 years ago, I revived it, and partly because as part of the women's rights movement, a part of Africa, we often hear and are challenged to tell our stories, Kisima. And so maybe it's following in that footstep that our stories are valid, our stories are important. You just never know where it will land, who it will be for. So just the rising to that call, in a sense, to tell my story. And so it's I think all those three threads together.
Tell us a bit about who JK is and where you come from.
Oh my goodness. First of all, buy the book, you will find out.
Yeah.
But so I'm a PK. PK is a preacher's kid. I'm the firstborn of an Anglican priest and his wife, Joy. I grew up in Uganda. That's where I'm from. That's where I'm born. But I'm also passionate about my continent. And I am a proud African. I'm a proud African. You're asking who I am. So I'm a PK, a very proud African. I am a wanderer. One of my favorite aunties calls me Vasco da Gama. And I had to, at some point, actually embrace this wandering spirit. So COVID was very hard for the likes of us who were told to stay in one place because we just can't. I think I feed off travel. I feed off long drives to nowhere. That's who I am, a wanderer. And wandering more to, and I know we use this term a lot, wandering more to find myself or to settle myself. So anytime I'm on the road or anytime I'm, it's that where I'm seeking to find or to settle my spirit. So I am a wanderer, an adventurer, and I also call myself a philanthropist, and I guess we shall get into that. But I embody that word because I think you cannot live in Africa and not know and experience generosity in all types of forms, from all types of people, in all types of ways, all the time. And so when I say that I'm a PK, a preacher's kid, an Anglican priest, I don't know what it's like here. In Uganda, they are not the most well-paid people. And so there were times that we struggled, times that we couldn't make ends meet, times that we had to rely on others to pay our fees or to go and ask the headmaster or headmistress of where we were going to school to just this term let us study, we'll find the money. Once in a while having to be fed by parishioners, but also growing up with a mother who absolutely ingrained in us the spirit of generosity. To this day, I always tell people, yeah, I can't, even if I have to pluck a flower on the way to see someone, I cannot turn up to someone's house empty-handed. That's how we were grown. So it's not even about what you don't have. It's that everybody has something to give. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the way we practice generosity here. So yes, I call myself a philanthropist to embrace that into which I was grown and that which I witness of my African people every day.
Well, people usually, when they think of philanthropy and philanthropists, they think of wealthy individuals. So could we assume the same with you?
I don't think my bank would agree with you. No,
because there is
I understand
the
what
concept
you mean.
is really different in the way it's understood in different parts of the world.
So, and again, when I say that I call myself a philanthropist, it's also to, in a sense, take back the word. Because yes, the narrative often is that you're assumed to be wealthy, or you have to be wealthy in money in order to be called a philanthropist. But the root of the word is love for humanity. And we love in different ways. When I talk about philanthropy, it's for me generosity of time and treasure and talent. So it's not one thing. And moreover, love of humanity can be expressed through 1 shilling and through 1,000,000 shillings. Like it's not, there's no cap that says below this you're not a philanthropist, right? So I think using that word for me is a way to democratize it, to repoliticize it, but also to say you can look like me and be a philanthropist, right? You don't have to be rich, mostly white, mostly Western. We are generous at heart. In fact, the journey of this book itself is a journey of generosity. The fact that we are here today also speaks of generosity, of all of you that have come to spend your time. We gift time so much in this continent, and I don't think we can even quantify just that generosity of time and generosity of talent if we didn't have people who helped us write books or helped us edit books or helped us, so it's for me, it's all day, every day, it's everywhere. And so that's why I use that word, because I believe that's who I am.
Yeah. So in a way, we are all philanthropists if we are kind and generous and we are able to share ourselves with others. I mean, that's what you're implying. Jackie, so when you start this book, you make it clear that it's not going to, the story is not told chronologically. You make it clear that we're going to zigzag through your life. However, you've lived a life in a way that seems to have been quite well structured, beginning from a home that you write about that gives us a sense that your parents were very strict and there were expectations about what needs to happen in your life. And you were expected perhaps to follow a science route, and there you are today, you are a lawyer. And so I just want to know how that structured environment, how has it influenced the choices you have made along the way up to where you are today?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I think I'm... So where do I start the answer? Being a firstborn, how many of us are firstborns? 2.5 of us. 3. I think you cannot firstborn if you're not structured, or at least you're taught very early, because you're part of the parenthood, that trinity, your parents plus yourself. But anyhow, I think in that sense, because you're such a support in being an example to and supporting parenting of, there is no way you can do it without structure. That is 1. 2, My father is an Anglican priest. Those that are of that faith know that it is absolutely based on structure. Beautiful structure in my view. The rituals, the sense of timing of seasons and the readings that you do, that itself is a whole line of structure. I went to one of the leading girls' schools in the country, and even that was a whole, from the gate to the class to the dormitory to the what you did from when you woke up to when you went to bed. It was structure, and it works for some people, and it absolutely doesn't for others. So it's I'm not, it's not even a judgment thing, and so the reason I was even struggling to answer was that I feel like I love structure, but I also rebel against structure. Yeah? Because then for some of us that are at the same time free spirits, structure can be daunting and boring. And so even within structure, we are remaking things, right? So yes, I have to go to lunch at 1 p.m., but what can I do with my meal that day? Kind of thing, right? So to find freedom even within structure, to color outside the lines and know that it's okay, and to absolutely be creative. And I think books were one of those things that helped me even break from structure, because I read a lot. I love fiction especially, and you can go all over the place in your mind even when you're in a structured box called home or school or work. So I think I'm one of those that thrive in both worlds. So absolute structure, yes, but also freedom. And I guess, going even to the title, I guess you cannot climb a mountain without structure, right? You absolutely need the structure. And structure is for our safety. It's for guidance. It's for finding a path. But at the same time, because it's man-made, it can be recreated all the time.
Jackie, 6 mountains. I mean, 6. You've
Only small ones. Please say 6. So
Jackie has climbed 6 mountains in East Africa. And where did this idea even begin? So what she does in the book is that she uses her adventures to tell us about the journey that she has, the journey of leadership that she has experienced over the years. But we also learn about, a little bit, gives us, some really interesting bits and historical bits about the places she has been to. And also we learn about the people she meets in these mountains, people who are living in the areas where she has been. Where does this idea of climbing, I mean, I read the book and I thought, I haven't even climbed one, maybe Jackie has climbed enough for me. Maybe I don't have to do it because Jackie has done it. I mean, it is just, it's incredible. So take us through, where does the idea start? What prompts you to begin that journey?
Once upon a time, in a land far away. So anyhow, I was crawling the streets of Facebook, and I came across a post by a friend, Jacob Zikusoka, who I talk about in the book. And he had climbed Rwenzori with friends of his. Mount Rwenzori is the highest mountain in Uganda and the biggest block mountain on the African continent. So he was telling the story of their climb, and he did it in such an interesting way, such an intriguing way, to the point that I thought, I'm going to do it too. So, thinking it was one thing, then deciding to do it is quite another, as we found. So anyhow, I reached out to him, but to backtrack just a bit, the year before I decided to climb the mountain, I had gone through a renewal of sorts. I had been struggling with depression. I didn't know it was depression at the time. I was just struggling with a sense of self-worth. I was at my lowest. I did not like myself. I did not like my life. I had suicidal ideations at some point, and I actually tried to end my life, but the plan didn't work. Maybe it was a foolish plan, but it didn't work. And so coming out of that, I thought to myself, how do I flip this around? And so seeing that was part of the, if I can't die, I might as well live. And of course, I'm really cutting the story really short because of time. But yeah, it was literally that. If I can't die, I might as well live. And part of that, coming out of that deep, dark hole and coming upon this, was to say, and part of that living will be to do something that is absolutely different from what I've done before, something that will challenge me, something that will be a new experience. And so that's part of why I leaned into, or maybe then strolling, this jumped out at me as, so this is the thing it will be, climb a mountain. And so I spoke to some friends of mine, because I didn't want to do it alone, so gathered a few friends and I said, do you want to? And they were interested, my little brother inclusive. And so we spoke to Jacob and his friends about the process and the structure. How do we climb? What do we need to do? And that's how the journey to the 6 mountains started. So, but yeah, it was really coming out of a deep, dark hole and trying to emerge out of it. And I guess that's why it was for that period of time, the 2 years that I did the 6 mountains, it was really that, clutching at living.
And yeah, I mean, 6 mountains within 2 years as a way of claiming life. I mean, that's what you did. And that's why we are having you here. I love how in the book you actually explain the lessons that each mountain had a special gift for you. From the tallest to the smallest, you know. And one of the things that I could relate to in your story was how, as a leader, when you are really at the top, you go through serious moments of doubt about yourself, about what you can offer to the world. If you could just maybe share 1 or 2 things that have helped you because of your journey over these mountains, that has helped you deal with some of the challenges of leadership. Particularly doubt, the imposter syndrome that many women tend to go through.
To struggle with. I think, and men too, actually. When you speak to them and they're vulnerable enough, they'll tell you that they too struggle with it. So, the one that jumped out at me as you were asking your question was, okay, I'll reference 2. One is Kilimanjaro, which I start with. I didn't start climbing, the first climb wasn't Kilimanjaro, but in the book, the first mountain that I talk about is Kilimanjaro. And to prepare for Mount Renzori, we did, my friends and I, 6 months of preparation every day almost. We were walking, we were cycling, we were doing dance fitness, we attended a thing called Torture Club where we're doing burpees and lifting and running and all kinds of things. We even hired a coach called George to take us through, and we were pulling tires on streets of Kampala, all those things. Like, we literally, blood, sweat and tears, gave our all to prepare for Renzori. And then the next year, a friend of mine and I climbed Kilimanjaro. Now, for Kilimanjaro, I didn't feel like I had prepared as much. And so going to that mountain, I was absolutely afraid of failure. And I know that it's a thing that we all struggle with. And maybe leaders in a different way than others. I struggled with, what if I don't make it to the top? How foolish could I have been to have prepared so much for a lesser mountain? How could I be foolish not to prepare even more for a greater mountain? So there was all that judgment on myself. There was the potential shame because when I climbed Kilimanjaro, it was me and a Ugandan friend, and we teamed up with 3 Kenyans. I don't know what people here know about Kenyans, but in East Africa, Kenyans are the runners, they are the hikers, they are in sports, eh? They are the ones. The rest of us don't even feature as East Africans. And so you can imagine being teamed with 3 Kenyans, one who has done Comrades I don't know how many times, another one was preparing for the New York Marathon, and I was just like, why did they put me with these people? Was it to embarrass me, to shame me, so I was older than them, I was less fit than them, and so to cover my shame, so on the mountain you of course walk with guides, and if you're a group you walk with several guides. So I had attached myself to one of the guides, and I said, you're my person on this mountain, and I requested of him that he and I would wake up an hour earlier and start the trek earlier than the rest, because anyway they always passed me, right? Even after I had started an hour earlier. But part of the starting earlier was more about covering my shame. I'm not as fit as you, I'm not as able as you, I'm not as prepared. And so, yeah, I think for me, even as I explain this, it's all those things. What do you do as a leader to hide your shame? And there are many things that shame us or we find shameful. And so, what are the ways that I camouflage my shame? How do I deal with unpreparedness? And I guess we all feel those moments of literal unpreparedness. And when I finally made it to the summit, or as I could see Uhuru Peak, I literally broke down and cried. Why? Again, because of that compounding of that emotion of shame every day of those 5 days that we climbed up, and that feeling of you're going to fail, you're not prepared. So in that moment, I think my lesson at that time was, how do I deal with shame? What is my self-talk? Because that too can trip us up very many times. And especially your self-talk when, like I said, I couldn't share it, but these were the thoughts that were going through my mind all the time. So that is one that I'll share. The second one, very quickly, is for Rwenzori. We attached the climb to a cause. We teamed up with an organization called 4040. It's a Ugandan organization that supports literacy among underprivileged children. And it also, at the time, was supporting children's homes in Uganda. One of the homes in Kampala didn't have enough mattresses for the children that they were hosting. And so we decided that we would use our climb to raise money for mattresses for that children's home. And so in the times that we were struggling up that mountain, the one thing that kept me going personally was, we have a cause, we have a cause, we have a cause. And I think sometimes then, therefore, the leadership lesson is that leading gets hard. It absolutely does. And I think if we don't have a cause higher than my climbing every day, we might find it harder. What worked for me on Rwenzori was having that cause, that I'm here for children, I have to get up this mountain. So yeah, just a few snippets. Please buy the book, you'll see.
Yes, and because she does.
I feel like I'm giving you the whole.
I mean, those bits are just so interesting, and I think that I mean, you do also speak, about at one time how you have the courage to admit that you need help, which is something that it's so difficult to do when you are leading. Just also, this is going to be my last one because I thought this was intriguing. You are a woman rights activist. You have dealt with a number of cases as a lawyer where you had to defend women under very dire circumstances. It's amazing how in this book, though, you don't go deep attacking patriarchy, and I wondered why. But on the other side is that you speak so beautifully about the men who have supported you. And, again, I encourage people, I mean, it's just one of those books where I felt you are celebrating men who have been behind you as much as you are celebrating the women who have also been behind you on this journey. But there is a way you speak about your brother, the way you speak about your father, the way you speak about your coach, the way you speak about the driver. So there is a way in which you show this gentle kindness, which is quite special in the way you do it, because it's not what I expected from a person I see as an African feminist, and it sort of shifted my view about how we portray men, particularly when feminists are in the room. What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting that you say that, and So yes, I am a feminist. No ifs, no buts, 100%. And I think, how do I even tell my story? I'm a feminist who also lives in a world with men, women, others, right? And that there's also the understanding that we're all caught up in this patriarchal system that doesn't work for women, and I'm sure it doesn't work for men, even though it might work better for them, but it doesn't work for some men, let me say that. And I think if they were honest enough, it doesn't work for all of them. But anyhow, so it's the appreciation to say that as a feminist, it is my duty to fight injustice where I see it, when I see it, to speak up against oppression, absolutely, as well as to embrace the good in others when I see it, right? So it's both, and I don't think it's a thick line in the sand that it's you're either this side or the other side, and guns blazing will shoot at the other side, because also understanding feminism means that context is very, very critical. That while you might have power in one context, in another you're absolutely vulnerable, and because that is constantly shifting all the time, you therefore I think I come at this work therefore with more grace. And that's not to say, I think each feminist comes at their story, approaches the way they do what they do with many things in the background of them. Yeah, so I don't know that there's this universal one way we must do feminism or must speak about patriarchy. I think it's experience, it's nuance, it's context, it's cultural, it's many things put together. And and I think if any of us were here, we would also tell beautiful stories of both men and women and others that have helped us to where we are. So I think that's how I will land it. Yeah, yeah.
I will open it up to the floor.
Yeah, my name is Medical Siga, so I guess that me and you probably are tribesmates that speak the same language. I just come from the mountainous area of Kigezi. So when I was invited to attend the book launch, I just wanted to come with a fresh mind. And I think you put it so beautifully, the journey that you have had. I come from Kanungu and I see the two mountains. When I was a kid, every morning I see the snow on the Wenzori mountain. It's just about 20 kilometers from my place, from my village. And then I see the other mountain, probably is in your book, I haven't read it, the Mavura mountain. And the volcanoes of the Ragongo. I saw them ever since I was a child in the 60s. With the fires coming up. And so I was interested, being a person from the mountains. I never climbed those mountains. So I just looked at them. And then obviously you described it so well, the structure. You went to a structured school, probably a Gayaza or something. And I went to an unstructured school, which was entirely, which had no rules. And somehow our paths keep crossing. So at one time when I left Uganda, about 37 years ago, and I was just like a Vasco da Gama like you, so I took my journeys. I reached the bottom of Mount Kilimanjaro, and I just looked up. And it's a single mountain that just goes endlessly until it disappears in the clouds. And I said, no, I'm not going to try. Because you just can't make it from out there. So there was a terror that I heard. And obviously, being a Marco Polo like you, then I worked in Zambia, I worked in Zimbabwe, I worked in Lesotho, and sometime in '93, I came to South Africa. And I also was at Wits University. I lectured at Wits University. I was a research fellow in engineering at Hillman Building. So I've been a kind of a Marco Polo. And I'm really looking forward to reading your book, because much as it is a personal journey, as you have described it, it carries a lot of themes within it that I would actually want to embrace and understand the perspective that having climbed the mountains for which I failed badly would be encouraging, and to understand why I was terrorized to remain at the bottom of the mountain as opposed to you who went to the top of the mountain several times, not just once. So, I believe that it's a present story, it's a beautiful story, and I'm looking forward to reading it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't even judge you for being terrified, because mountains, they are they require of you that you be reverent of them. It just, they are grand. They are, like you said, half of it in the clouds, and not everyone, it's. In fact, climbing these mountains, or even being in nature, I always tell myself I can understand why my ancestors would worship these things, because they just evoke that sense of reverence, of grandeur, of majesty, of magic, of mystery. And even if you just stop at the base, I think it's okay, but I also encourage you to climb a mountain. They are short ones. They are. I'm coming from Kanungu, as you know, and I don't know why they don't call the ones in Kanungu mountains, because those things are high. Yeah. But it's maybe they're not for everyone, but so this is the other interesting thing that I found. I struggled with that because maybe I would have continued climbing mountains, but it's bloody expensive. It's quite an expensive venture, and especially because mountains are so high, they are so cold. In many parts of Africa, maybe not here, where we don't experience winter, we do not have the gear, the gadgets, the clothing appropriate for the mountain. Do we have second-hand clothes? Yes. Did we go downtown to Owino or wherever to find those things? Yes, but they are second-hand and may not be appropriate for. So anyhow, part of the dreams we had when we came down from Rwenzori was even starting an outdoors clothing shop that would also have affordable mountain gear. Because I think part of what stops people, really, it is an expensive venture. So how do we make it accessible in terms of price, in terms of cost? I spoke recently to Sarah Kumalo, who is South African, Zimbabwean, first woman to summit Everest. And she says she told me that one of her passions is to make hiking and mountain climbing accessible. She's also hoping to also make mountain clothes for African bodies. It's interesting what you learn, right? Doing all these things for African bodies. And the other passion of hers, which I found quite interesting, is then also to encourage and give a voice to more mountain female guides. And when she said that, I was like, oh my goodness, all the mountains that I've climbed, I was with men. But there are female guides actually for Kilimanjaro and many maybe of the other mountains. But because it is assumed to be a male thing, women are not as seen, not as heard. And so she says one of the things she does when she takes expeditions is to insist on female guides, as part of the way to equalize this experience and the money you get for the communities that live around those mountains. So the mountain teaches many things. There are many experiences that come from that. So it's to say that I understand, but I also hope that climb a short one.
Well, I don't blame you for staying at the bottom. That's where I am as well. Okay, the person next to you, and then we'll come this way. Yeah. Okay, yes, we can start there and then go.
All right, thank you very much, and glad that I'm speaking after my brother from Uganda as well. I'm also from Uganda, and a few things just to kind of disclaimers. First of all, you've done better than me. You've gotten to the foot of the mountain at least. I've not seen any, despite the fact I come from northern Uganda and we don't have big mountains there. I also know Jackie, not as a mountain climber, but as an advocate for justice. I've worked with her for a long time, so it's inspiring, really. And when I saw this book launch in Uganda, I had some ideas about what Jackie is writing about. And to be honest, I will buy the book, and because I think it's completely different from what I was thinking. I don't think what I imagined you to be writing is actually what is in that book. But that's the reason I'm here as well, to learn. So I have climbed the hill, at least with Jackie. One morning we went to a retreat somewhere in your region, sir.
That was a
and
big deal.
Just climbing that hill was difficult. Of course, I was left behind. Jackie at that time confirmed that she doesn't believe in SDGs because she left me behind. But I think maybe what she will remember is how I came down from the mountain, because I just cut a plastic bag and then I was just seated and rolling back down. It was just impossible to imagine how difficult it was to go up, and even more difficult to come down, because it was a lot more dangerous, slippery, and coming down and all of that. So anyway, I'm really intrigued and looking forward to reading the book. One question I have for you, Jackie, is all these encounters that you have had with mountains and the mysteries and the myths and all of this, what impact has this had in your life as a person? Because you give an interesting context in response to one of the questions about the difficulties you had before you thought about this. So how has this, have these adventures impacted you as a person? What has changed about you that maybe you didn't know before? Just to get a bit more about what impact these mysterious things have had in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. And first to your first point that, yeah, we often train for the summit. Very little is told about the descent, right? That yes, once you have reached there, you have to go down. And for every, oh my goodness, for every climb, you'll know that there'll be an equally steep descent. And that the technique on the climb is very different from the technique coming down. And on Rwenzori, I also used, we call it rear gear. I also slid down most of those things. You really need strong knees on your way down. Strong knees. And one or two of our friends actually struggled. One, Bernard Tabaire, if you know him, even had to go and do knee surgery after. So yeah, nobody talks about the descent, and yet it's as important because once you get up, you have to come down. There's no more up to go, right? So I think that for me there is maybe one of the lessons that has impacted me, to always watch when I'm going up, to remember that there's a down, and that's what we always say. So how you treat people going up, remember you have to come down with those very same people. So please watch how you treat people up and down a mountain. I think the other thing has been the ever eternal lesson about one step in front of another. This world, this work that we do as social justice activists, this context that we live in as countries going through multiple changes, can be very daunting, can be extremely draining, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. Those of us who work in the non-profit, overwhelmed by no funding, and your board isn't understanding you, and your staff is going crazy, or you are the one going crazy, I don't know who, but anyhow. And so for me, that always remembering on the mountain, the way you get up is not by flying, is not by jumping, it is literally one foot in front of another, day by day by day. And so when I'm feeling that sense of overwhelm, I always tell myself, one foot in front of another. One foot in front of another. There's one that I don't reference, but I do talk about whenever I get the opportunity. On Kilimanjaro, well, on all the mountains, but Kilimanjaro, you especially feel it on a multi-day hike. I don't know about mountains in South Africa. In East Africa, the multi-day ones, you get up in the morning and you're hiking literally the whole day. So of course, along the way, nature takes its course and you need to, go and relieve yourself. And there are no bathrooms, there's no bathroom stop, females here, males there. You all sort of find your way where you need to go. And it was on Kilimanjaro as I ducked behind one of the rocks and found, of course, you're not the first mountain climber. Several people have climbed before you. So you find what you find. And as I was leaving one of those moments, the thing that struck me was, leave your shit on the mountain. Because the option, the other, is you poop it, you scoop it, put it in your bag. It's not an option, but I'm saying in that moment that lesson was, right? And many of us are walking around with our shit. And we are stinky, and we stink up our spaces, and we are not flavorful to those around us. So in that moment, it was, there are things you just need to leave. In that moment, I've said it as raw as I can, and I hope they can bleep the thing if they need to. Yeah. So what does that look like on a daily basis? To leave your on the mountain. It's just that wisdom to what are the things I leave, what are the things I walk away from, what are the things I, not because I'm not dealing with them, I mean I've had to, but I'm choosing to leave it because I want to be, because I can't, the option of carrying the shit is not, or how can I realize when I'm carrying shit that I need to leave? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you do speak a bit, not necessarily, you don't reference this example, but you do speak about the transformation that happens, particularly when you descend from a mountain. And toxicity is a big thing in leadership and how leaders impact others when they are toxic and how they can infuse that just on every other person and create an environment that is not productive. We'll take the next question, please.
Congratulations, Jackie, on facing the mountain of writing the book and complete it. And I say that from a place of an African woman that has grown up loving to read stories, but having very few options of people like me, So you read Nancy Drew and all these other people. So it's from that place where you come to a bookshop and you just try and find a book, and there's no book for you to get because nothing really speaks to you. So a big congratulations for that. I have two questions, and perhaps they're related to each other. One is from that place of there are very few African stories on the bookshelf. Do you feel that you are the same Jackie that you were before you wrote the first word of the book, and now that here's the book, you face the mountains, but now writing, the journey of writing about facing the mountains? And Arthur mentioned earlier that he's surprised that you wrote this kind of book. So my second question is, do you feel that there's parts of the writing process where you had to hold back certain elements to focus on facing the mountain? Yeah.
I don't know if you had come in when I spoke about, the first question was why this, why now? And part of the answer I gave was African stories. And I know we talk about it often. So it's one thing to talk about telling your story or telling a story. And it's quite another to actually do the process of writing. And I think I have a newfound respect for people who do it on a daily. It's not an easy task, but there too I found that I needed help, and so reaching for help is a thing. But writing books is not cheap. So again, how do you democratize the space of writing? And also writing comes in many forms. Yes, books are one thing, but people are telling their stories through song, through dance, through many ways that we create. Maybe it's more the written word that we are clutching to on, but So there's that. The recognition of our story is important. Of course, did I struggle with, but what makes your story so important? So I had to fight that demon again and again, and maybe that's why also we don't see a lot of African stories. Just struggling with that imposter. Do I have enough to say? Who am I? Like you said, 6 mountains. I know people who have done the 7 highest peaks 10 times.
Yeah.
I'm just writing about 6 short mountains in East Africa. So there is even that comparison of what have I done in comparison to people who have done even greater things, right? So especially because my book is a memoir. Maybe fiction writers struggle with something else. Maybe academic writers have their own struggles, right? So it's constantly overcoming that mountain to not, because I guess it's easier and we can talk ourselves out of writing our stories. But also, I think writing this has also made me appreciate how it is still an area of advocacy for us in terms of not just the writing it, but even the access to spaces that will carry our books. Yeah. Those that of my friends who've written bigger, better books, when they tell you if you're writing for the Western market, you write in a certain way. If you're writing for so there's still a lot of advocacy to do to get the African voice heard. And I think it's not just for writers to do, I think it's for all of us continuously to keep pressing that we have a story to tell. Whether it is under or near that fireplace, whether it is through blogs, whether it is, we have a story to tell. And like you, I think when I walk into a bookstore, yes, I'm looking for and where are the Africans that are writing like me, and I support them with my pockets. I buy African, so it's a whole, right? So yes, people are writing. Are we buying their books, or we're just saying stories are not there? Or how else are we attending their book events? Are we like, what is the way to support the storytelling by Africans, and what can each of us do? Are we availing them to libraries? What are we doing in that grand effort to get the African story out? What was the second? What was the second question? Am I the same Jackie? Oh my.
Yeah.
Mostly. I think I've started. The way that I'm maybe different is I've started to think about the next and what it might be about. So that I think is the way that I have changed through this process. But I've also been very, very grateful. Recently, about 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Nairobi attending a literary festival. And maybe that's the other thing that has changed, that you now see with different eyes, other writers, other books in the space, that it opens a different portal in your brain about these things. So I think I definitely will be kinder to books, to book writers, to yes, because I know that there's a struggle, there is a mountain there.
Yeah. Especially when you self-publish, like you did. You said you self-published this one, yeah? Okay. We'll take last 2 questions. Yeah.
Hello. Good evening. Yes. I have a comment and a question. So I'll start with the comments. I think at times, and there's been quite a lot of talk about us as Africans reclaiming some things about ourselves. And you actually spoke to it quite well. We tell our stories. We've been having our stories told. I think it's more about how we consuming what we are telling, right? Or how do we find the spaces where we can hear each other's stories. And I think an extension of that is how are we giving the how are we giving the shine, I would say the shine, to those who are telling those stories, so that it's not like we're not doing those things. It's happening, but most probably we're just not having it seen. In the same breath, we are hikers. We've been walking. Oh, it's actually in nature. When we say Africans are hiking, no, we do it all the time. I once hiked to Drakensberg. Please come with me next time I go to Drakensberg. You're invited. And if you go towards, so at the top, it actually is a very long range that actually cuts between SA and Lesotho. And there's no post where you can have your things stamped at all. It's just like an open field. And at the top, you see young boys who are there to herd the sheep, and they're here at the top. How did you get here? No, we walked, we hiked. We're hikers. I guess at some point it's about us reclaiming and re-stamping that in ourselves. Now we have cars and stuff like that, so you don't assume as such, but in our true nature, as we were in the past, we actually could do. You would have been long hiking if it just wasn't for living in the urban areas, right? It's just how things have changed around us. I think I just wanted to take the time to just to like reclaim that part of ourselves. In terms of the question, you actually speak quite clearly that it's a book that actually can sink in and out of a lesson on leadership, and after having climbed 6 different hills, I call it a hill. There's a lot that you gained, but number 3, you were quite strong in it. You've got the confidence to kind of understand. There's things that you can say, I could do this, and there's things where you can trust someone to help you with it. How did you know how to sway between those parts? Because a sign of a good leader is someone who knows how to trust someone else to lead the fall, and someone who knows how to take the lead and trust themselves. How was your climb from number 3 to number 6 when you were now getting stronger? How did you know when you were going to trust yourself, and how did you know that now it's best to actually trust someone else, and how do you then translate it back to this leadership? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your question. And to your first point about reclaiming, that's why I call myself a philanthropist, because that's what we are. We are inventors, we are scientists, we are just amazing all-round Africans. Yeah. We are so yes, reclaiming that we are hikers, we are all these things that we tell ourselves we are not. And we are proudly so, and have done it for millennia. So seeing ourselves and reclaiming those things, I think is very important work that CAPSI does, that many of us do. Now, just FYI, I didn't even plan to climb 6. When we started out, because I had seen Jacob's post about Rwenzori, in my mind, I was only going to climb Rwenzori. It so happened that so we were a band of 6 people. Amongst us, we said, you know what, it might be foolhardy to attempt a high mountain as the first thing. So why don't we try a lesser mountain, and just for practice. So we went to Elgon. So Elgon was actually my first mountain. Mount Elgon is a mountain in the east of Uganda that also crosses into Kenya. So it's shared by those 2 countries. And Elgon was a 5-day climb, 3 days up, 2 days down. And so it wasn't even, it was unintentional. So having climbed Elgon, again, I said it was a 6-month training period. Having climbed Elgon, we suddenly realized how flat-ish Kampala is, because that's where we were training. And so we told ourselves, you know what, we better go to the west to climb steeper things, because Rwenzori is steep. That's how we went to Muhabura, right? So it was more, it wasn't that I hadn't planned this, I'll start from easy to more difficult. No, it was a meandering path, literally a meandering path. So before Rwenzori, I had climbed Elgon and Muhabura. Elgon as a practice, coming from there saying, no, Kampala is too flat, let's now practice for real on a real, you know, a real ascent, and finding that, Muhabura is not a kind mountain at all. It's very steep, literally like this, going up, and so, it was one of the mountains I've not enjoyed completely. Now, as we were dreaming our dreams, as that little band of 6 people, we started to dream about a mountain tour of Africa. And we said, okay, Africa is very big, let's start small, let's start in East Africa. So we've done the highest in Uganda, maybe let's do the highest in Tanzania and the highest in Kenya. Now, of the 6, Michelle and I went and climbed Kilimanjaro. Because the friend that I referenced who wanted to come but had to get knee surgery, he couldn't join us for Kilimanjaro. Then the next was supposed to be Kenya, but I chickened out and climbed another mountain in Kenya because I was tired of multi-day hikes. Is also not just climbing for several days, it's also being in the cold for several days. And I don't enjoy being cold every day, all day, as you sleep, as you wake. It's just, it gets to me. I've been freezing in Joburg. I want to go back to Uganda anyhow. But yeah, cold just gets to me. So I chickened out of Kenya and did Longonot instead. So yeah, that was the way those mountains happened. And therefore, to your point, because each mountain is different, so different skill set, different timing, different times, you literally know that there are people who've done it before you, i.e. your guides. So you better trust them, you better follow their rules, you better do as they say, because they know the mountain better than you. And I think to leadership then, it's to, I don't know how you can lead and not be humble. Like it's duh, you don't know everything. Although our leaders think they do. But anyhow, we're not talking about those ones who know everything. The rest of us, normal people, we don't know everything. So I guess in that sense, that's what would cause the trust. That there are people who know things better than you. And so you lean into their professionalism, you lean into their been there, done that, I have the experience. You lean into their intuition, you lean into their knowledge, their awareness, their everything. And I guess that's, as leaders, that's what we have to, so humility and just constantly telling yourself, I'm not the smartest here. Because you're not, we're not you, I mean, you. But no, you know what I mean, yeah. And I think when you do that, then you give yourself grace and space to trust others.
Yeah. We'll take one last.
Well, just
yes.
The ladies here.
Anyone, they can decide who's taking the last one.
Congratulations, Jackie, on these mountains. I just have one question, and this question comes from a few factors that I grasped from what you were saying in the story, and mostly how the obstacles you faced and the challenges and the background you come from, all the person that you are, and it also contributed to facing mountains. So my question is, how do you think your book will resonate with families from different backgrounds and cultures.
I think it's a wonderful one. Okay.
Virginia, would you mind? I think that one I want to listen to the answer. Even if I don't have time, I'd love to. Is that okay?
Oh, you ask yours then.
Oh, mine is not a question. She knows.
Okay.
No, so say your thing.
Say the comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Say your say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it on? Oh,
Yes.
Jackie, gosh, I've known you. I've not known your adulting, and it's really quite humbling that you've walked the path that you've walked, and you still stand. You're still standing, and that is a testament to the person that I knew as a child, as a young lady. So please continue living. One of the things that I wanted to also tell you that what you've gone through is something that you seem to be suffering from, and you do not know how to. You're finding it very challenging to come out and say, I've reached a point where I cannot go any further. I'm feeling depressed. The world is caving in within me. I have suicide ideation. In fact, I need to make you laugh. When I went through that, I actually asked the pastor, do Christians have suicide thoughts? He was so shocked. So of course, I was prayed for and everything. But it's amazing. It's actually quite encouraging that we are coming out and saying, you're tired of suffering in silence, you need help. So thank you for that. That was really, it sort of put a bit of fire under my feet, because it's something that I'm walking through, and it is true. You reach a point where you're like, okay, I can't take my life. So what next? And to live. So I need to live. So what do I need to live for? So get a higher purpose. And that is something, thank you for sharing for that. And then the second one is a philanthropy and being a philanthropist. It is actually something that is a title that is accorded to Bill Gates, to the rich, the white, and the rich people and the white people, even in South Africa, which has become my home. And one of the things when you say you want to claim it back, and I think it's very, very amazing, and I mean, not amazing, maybe it's a misnomer, but it's one of the things where Africans do not realize we actually own that particular word called philanthropy. The very fact that you have said African philanthropy and social investment. In South Africa, you have the most amazing word, although it only happened in 2010. It's called Ubuntu. We have things here called Stokvel. We have in Uganda, we have Mothers Union, and we have Mothers Union here, where when a society is suffering, it comes together. When people die, death in the family, in the community comes together. But there's something about African engagement, African, I can't find the word. When we get together, what we do sort of tends to be minimized. There is a lot of where, like we are told, we speak dialogues, and yet we don't speak languages. When you tell a French person and French and English are the same, they look at you and they want to kill you. But when we say our languages are different, no, we don't speak languages, we speak dialogues. When we talk about philanthropy and Ubuntu, those are two different things. Oh no, but someone is dying, you're cooking for somebody. And yet when you think about it and you weigh them, they're the same thing. So I do love the fact that you said we are claiming it, and we need to claim it within also the context where we live in, that Ubuntu is a philanthropy exercise, a philanthropy way of life, and we need to put it in that category, even if we're dealing it from a point of view of research and study. We need to own what we are as Africans within our culture, within our setting, and give it voice and give it gravitas. And then lastly, the last one about climbing mountains. Well done. I'm a hiker, and it is true, you go out, you go and spread yourself out, and then you regather yourself. And I'm hoping that one of these days I'll do the Camino, either in Santiago or in Chile, because I love hiking. And the expression, I remember, sorry, I'm going to go a bit Christian based. There's a song which says, when I see the stars, the mountains, how great thou art. There are times when you're out in nature and you look at the grandiose of nature, the way the landscape, the way the hills fold into each other, or when you're looking from afar and you see the greenery and the trees, and it's like it basically puts a song in your heart. The hills sing and also your heart sings. So thank you so much for this journey. Thank you for sharing what you have learned. And thank you for also giving us space to know that we are not alone in the struggle, and we have a way to express ourselves, or it might not be writing, but it might be some other way that other people can learn. We all stand on shoulders of giants, so we're not where we are because of our own ability, and we need to learn that so that we can reach out for help.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ngonzi. And as you were speaking, especially about African generosity, the song that came to mind, I thought I was going to sing, but now, I'm shy. In good times and bad times, I'll be that one. Come back when I'm launching the album.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be on your side forevermore. And
Yeah.
to digress, and then I'll come to your point. I had an organization called CivSource Africa. And one of the things we are passionate about is telling stories of African giving and generosity, and also researching it and all these things. And I remember there's a grant that we were writing, a research grant to a German foundation. And the question they did put to us was, but is there philanthropy in Africa? You guys only give to weddings and funerals. And this was not long ago, 2020 probably, so it's not, and yeah, Africa is one country. Anyhow, so it's that continuous debunking of myths, of stereotypes, of what blackness is, of what black giving is and looks like, and how it has sustained us for millennia, and hopefully how we are paying it forward to the next generations. And so it's important to, in that sense, to say yes, we are, and it doesn't have to look like what you give, like, right? But we do giving, and we know that it's abundant in our communities. And to the question that was asked, I think even the reason that I'm here tonight is testament that this book resonates whoever you are, wherever you are, because one, we are all human. We all, if not climb physical mountains, climb figurative mountains. There's a thing that you're facing. And my story is not just about the physical mountains. It also intersperses the figurative mountains that I've climbed, whether as a child, as a preacher's kid, as a leader, as an activist, I interweave it. And I believe, at least for those that have given me feedback, there's something in there for everybody. Something will resonate. And it's amazing that, you know, having read my book, people say, I need to gift it to, like, you will also see a person who needs to read it. I think it's that exciting, that interesting, that compelling. So buy 10 books.
Yes.
I
mean, one of the things, sorry, yeah.
But yeah, I hope you, it's
yeah.
You'll see yourself in there, literally.
Yes, it's true. Because one of the things we didn't get a chance to speak about is how in this book you talk about relationships and forming equitable, respectable relationships, and you show us how to go about it in the stories that you tell. On that note, Jackie, I think it would be great for you to read just 2 paragraphs from your book that capture what this journey is about and why mountains are just so important in our lives, whether they are there metaphorically or we are climbing them for real. I'm still looking forward to climbing one for real. So you could just start just these 2 paragraphs as we close.
And I'm doing this FYI without my glasses, so.
You want to try mine? But don't expose me. If
I know, right?
No,
but mountains, with their enduring presence and ever-changing landscapes, offer us a profound metaphor for the journey of life. From the ascent of youth to the plateau of prime, the descent of later years, and the abyss of winter, mountains mirror the seasons and phases of our existence. They remind us that life is a dynamic and ever-evolving journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and opportunities for growth. In the grand tapestry of existence, we find solace and inspiration in the mountains' steadfastness and resilience. They encourage us to embrace each season of life with gratitude and a sense of adventure, knowing that, like the mountains, our journey is marked by both beauty and adversity. Just as mountains endure the passage of time, so too can we find strength in the face of life's challenges and ultimately reach the summit of our own personal mountains with grace and wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you. On that note, go and climb your mountains and please buy the book.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.